Chapter 6. Assault Rifle. We headed towards the house of the succubus living in this area. This succubus was the one in charge of this residential area. Furthermore, it seems like this residential area was the only safe one on this floor. Each floor of the dungeon is divided into 3 rooms and each of these rooms could be set up individually. I heard that if one were to take a single step outside of the residential area, they'd be attacked by the bloodthirsty monsters. For us to reach our goal, the maelstroms that gushes out monsters, we needed the guidance of the succubus. We finally arrived at the succubus house and so we knocked. Era. Ma. Welcome, creation, demon lord Procel-sama. I didn't expect you to pay me a visit on the very first day. A calm-toned woman appeared. But of course, this was no ordinary woman. She had pink hair, a voluptuous figure, and most noticeably, bat-like wings and a slick, hairless tail. Such was the B-rank monster succubus. She had a special effect on her that anyone that looked at her would be attracted to her. I then felt a pain in my hand. It was Tenko pinching me. Moo, Oto-san, what a loose face. I must have had a pretty dirty look on my face when I was looking at the succubus. Tenko pouted. It was horrible. With that, I wouldn't have had any dignity left as both a demon lord and as a father. So I cleared my throat and calmed my mind. Succubus. We came here for a task. We want to raise our levels right away, you see, so we wish to use the D-rank maelstrom. By the way, it seemed like the D-rank monster that comes out of the maelstrom was the monster I fought when I had just woken up, the Blue Wolf Garm. If I could defeat it with just an automatic handgun, I saw no reason to lose to it now that I carried the M&K 416, an assault rifle. Their capabilities were worlds apart. Is that so? I understand. I'll guide you. Well then, I hope we can be friends. Thanks, you're helping us out a lot. The succubus beckoned. When Tenko and I came close enough, the succubus closed her eyes and began concentrating. A magic formation appeared under our feet. She had the ability to transfer to any room or level she wished to within this dungeon. It seems it was for this reason that she was in charge of the residential area. As long as she had the strength, she could send the monsters living in the residential area to wherever they were needed. One doesn't need to think hard to know the advantages such an ability would create. And then, light rose and the transfer magic was activated. There were dead trees and huge tumbling rocks in the wasteland we were transferred to, and not long after we walked, we caught sight of a swirl of black and purple. That swirl was the maelstrom, the thing one could buy by paying for 100-fold the price of a monster. Once each day, that monster would spring forth from the maelstrom. And for this maelstrom, the monster coming out, it was the D-rank monster Garm. Era, how lucky. A monster will come out anytime now. I'm glad we didn't have to wait. Somehow, I just knew. Although I wasn't told of anything, I had sensed the power rising from the swirl. When monsters of the D rank were created with fixed levels, it would typically be created at around level 30 to 40. Generally, it looked like those monsters would be on par with demon lords and S-rank monsters at level 1. I had heard that under the assumption that my basic abilities were on par with a Garm, it was then expected that I would certainly win over it by having a unique skill under my belt. And so, the Garm was set on me in my first fight. I distanced myself about 200 meters away from the swirl. Era. Is it fine to be that far away? Weren't you here to hunt the Garm and level up? The succubus asked the question in her calm as ever voice. It's alright. I'll reach it just fine. The maximum effective range of the M&K 416 was 400 meters. It's easy to misunderstand, but this assault rifle wasn't a gun for rapid-fire shooting. Surely, with a rate of fire of 800 rounds per minute, it was capable of it, but this was a rifle that can aim and shoot steadily. It was very much capable of extremely accurate long-range sniping. Considering how automatic pistols have, at most, a 10-meter range, you'll know full well just how much a powerful weapon this is. Are you sure? At that range, even magic won't reach. Just watch. I couldn't remember anything, but this world's general knowledge has been firmly engraved into my mind. The maximum range of magic was 100 meters and I was waiting somewhere twice of that distance, so I understood her concerns. When I looked at Tenko's direction, she looked at me with eyes that trembled, wondering whether or not something interesting would happen. It was probably because she had trust in me that she made that kind of expression. And I just refused to betray her expectations. Well then, it's been a few minutes, hasn't it? The The swirl then began flowing faster. It was the sign that a monster was going to be created. I readied the M&K 416. My mind calmed down and my fear of confronting a monster had vanished. My hand was glued to the gun and I felt the sensation I had when I held the automatic pistol before. It was pleasant. I felt I could do anything within this moment. Before I lost my memories, I probably liked using guns. At the same time I got greatly familiar with it. And then, the time finally came for the GARM to be created. Blue particles rose and took the form of a wolf. It was completely materialized. I then pulled the trigger. At that moment, 3 dry sounds reverberated. The bullets flew as I pictured it in my mind, a perfect headshot. The MK416 had excellent accuracy, so it was possible to accurately shoot at this range. Yelp. The GARM was blown away, knocked down and then completely ceased all movement, not even a twitch. By almost the same time it raised a shriek from receiving the first bullet. I fired the third shot. The last 2 shots claimed its life. The M&K MK416 boasted a rate of fire of 850 rounds per minute. Had I kept pulling the trigger, even more bullets would have been sprayed. But I intentionally fired only 3 and stopped. This is what's called a 3-round burst. When full automatic firing is done, the gun would be harder to control, worsening the spreading of the bullets and increasing the number of wasted bullets. Moreover, overheating the gun's barrel would cause it to bend. On the other hand, single-shot guns couldn't be relied upon on securing the kill. And so, the 3-round burst was developed. Trials have revealed that the shots were accurate up to the 3rd shot. So by firing a set of 3 shots, the accuracy would be improved and ammo conserved. Furthermore, while letting the gun barrel rest, one could then take the time to adjust his aim. However, if ever there was a need to keep on raining bullets, then the gun's rapid-fire capabilities could be displayed as much as one wants by selecting the full auto mode. Amazing. As expected of Creation Demon Lord Sama, a one-sided battle from twice the maximum range of magic. Melee opponents won't be able to get near, and not to mention the ability to snipe magic users from outside of their range. By just having this weapon, one will be able to keep a wide-range strategic magic spells in check, won't they? Yeah, it can, can't it? Keeping it in check within the reach of the enemy's attacks sure is hard. There exists strategic magic spells in this world that possess powerful effects in exchange for taking a very long time to chant. One would generally use these magic spells from around 100 meters away the enemy while being protected by their vanguards. However, for this assault rifle, a distance of 100 meters is nothing. These strategic magic spells won't even get the chance to shoot. But I was a little surprised by the succubus's words. Her words held a great amount of strategy within them. That's Oto-san for you. Oto-san and his weapon are amazing. In contrast, Tenko's words held pure innocence. She had ran up this way and looked at my assault rifle with great interest. Do you want one? I do. But, I don't want something that shoots from far away. I want something that can shoot up close and with a boom. Up close and with a boom. Then I have just the thing. Luckily, I still had some magic power left. I'll take out another weapon instead of an assault rifle for Tenko. Surely, she'll be pleased with it. Understood. Then, I'll prepare a gun for close range and with great firepower. Just watch as I make it. And so, I used creation to summon a weapon that can shoot up close and with a big boom as Tenko wished for. Chapter 7. Dungeons without a demon lord. I gave Tenko the gun she wished for and immediately taught her how to use it. It seemed like she was very pleased with the gun when she tried to test fire it. She went on about how she wanted to use it in live combat right away. Succubus transferred us once again. This time, to the 68th floor. The D-rank monsters looked like they weren't enough for us, so we headed for the maelstrom that produced C-rank monsters. What the heck, just how many floors are there? All in all, 101. Wow. It was beyond what I imagined. I didn't expect it to go over 100 floors. That's because Beast Demon Lord Marchosias is one of the great old demon lords and has reigned for nearly 300 years. What's more, she's also a very hardworking person. She also has around 1500 monsters, by the way. That's way more than what I imagined. I shiver at the thought of us clashing. It's obvious, but the forces I command at the moment were nothing compared to hers. Marcho would probably beat me senseless without even sweating. Oto-san, don't worry. I'm here after all. I'll protect you. Tenko clung to my arms and raised an energetic voice. She was saying so, but 1500 was just too much even for her. Foo, what a good energetic child. As expected of an S-rank monster, even after being told of such things. But rest assured, Creation Demon Lord Procel-sama, she doesn't have any ill will towards you. Your training is, after all, her final main task. Final. I caught notice of those words. Oh, you haven't heard of it. The succubus looked at me with shock all over her face. Nope, I haven't heard anything. Is that so, then? I don't know if I should be the one to tell you. Apologies, but it's a secret. The succubus quickly bowed her head. I showed her that I understood, but Tenko looked like she was unsatisfied with it. Tell us, Tenko pestered. The succubus was smiling bitterly, but then, it looked like she finally gave in a little. Just a little, okay. When she said those words, the voice of a girl that shouldn't have been there was heard. There's no need for that. The space in front of me distorted, and then, Marcho was there. Really now, it was a good thing I checked up on your group. Succubus, I can't say I approve of talking as you wish about important and private matters. I have no excuse, Marchosias-sama. Well, it's fine. It's not like I forbade you talk about it. I'll let it go in consideration of your general performance. The succubus quietly lowered her head and Marcho smiled wryly. Can you also use transfer magic? No, I can't use high-ranking magic like succubus. I'm kind of a muscle-brained demon lord after all. It's more of like using my authority as a demon lord. I can jump to any place I want as long as it's within my dungeon. That was a convenient ability. I'll take note of it for when I make my dungeon in the future. But peeping is a distasteful hobby, you know. I was worried, so I checked. It was through succubus, by the way. You better remember this, but demon lords are able to share senses with up to 100 monsters. I have done so with almost all the leaders of each floor. Then, I have to restrain myself from bad-mouthing Marcho in front of succubus. Not just in front of her. You can never be sure where my eyes and ears are, so be careful. Being in a dungeon is like being inside the demon lord himself. Yeah, it's most probably like that. Sharing of senses. It seemed like I better to try it out once with Tenko. Could we share all of our 5 senses? If we could, then. Oto-san, are you thinking of something weird? Nope, nothing of the sort. Tenko was as sharp as ever, but I somehow deceived her. I then turned towards Marcho and she began talking to me. I'm telling you this since this is important information for you too. Succubus has already started talking about it, but, you see, we demon lords have a lifespan. Lifespan. Yeah, a lifespan. 300 years to be exact. If that much time has passed after one has become a demon lord, then that demon lord will cease to exist. By the way, I am 199 years old. I was breathless. She looked so healthy and yet she didn't even have a full year left. Hey, don't make that face. I've already done all the things I wanted to do. I have no regrets. And I have raising you as my final task. Training junior demon lords up is, you see, tasked requested to demon lords near the end of their lifespan. Once in 10 years, all in the same day, 10 demon lords are born, which also means there are children other than you. Perhaps it's kindness that this task is assigned to old demon lords, because if a young one did it, then they will see the newly born demon lord as a rival and thus won't be able to honestly teach them things. Her words about not regretting anything didn't seem to be a lie. Marcho's face was refreshing. And then, if the thing about there being 10 of us being born at the same time was true, then there were 9 others in the same batch as I am in. I understand the thing about our lifespan, but if you're going to die, what will then happen to the monsters you've left behind? I asked the question as I held Tenko's hand. I had been taught in the beginning that if my crystal was destroyed, my monsters as well as the dungeon would vanish. Then what about when the demon lord himself disappears? Nothing will happen to them. The demon lord disappearing has no connection to the dungeon and its monsters. They will continue to exist as long as the crystal does. Rather, the crystal will mimic the demon lord's behavior when he was still alive and will haphazardly and unreservedly create monsters using DP. The crystal will continue to irresponsibly do so over and over again, so the new monsters would end up fighting with the monsters that were created before. Well, pre-existing monsters would also fight one another. No longer under anyone's command, they will do whatever they wish. It's utter chaos. Monsters being free of command is nothing but an ominous premonition. The monsters that have no intelligence are especially bad. The monsters that has some will probably establish order with their fellow thinking monsters, but should the monsters that can't think have the greater numbers, then it's all for naught. A dungeon no longer having a demon lord is probably a very difficult place to live in for all its monsters. Well, after I'm gone, my monsters of the Covenant will be entrusted to someone else. The monsters are going to be free. They can establish a new order in the dungeon, rage as much as they want, or even go outside. Until the crystal is broken, all they have to do is live to the fullest. What happens to the monsters that went outside? Many of those children are subdued by humans. And sometimes, that act is connected to the end of the dungeon. The humans will turn serious and a full-blown dungeon subjugation will begin. Humans have great numbers as well as beings called heroes, beings on the same level as a demon lord. If the humans got serious, no one will be able to win against them, especially a dungeon that doesn't have demon lord. It was the natural conclusion. The monsters that went outside and hurt the humans would incur their wrath. And then, the humans also probably knew the fact that those monsters would be wiped off as well if the crystal was broken. One should always try to cut evil at its roots. In the absence of a demon lord, the dungeon's defenses would considerably go down, and in the end, the crystal would be broken and the dungeon and its monsters would be no more. By the way, do you remember that I told you about teaching you better hunting grounds than using the maelstroms? Of course. In fact, I was quite looking forward to it. Maelstrom would create monsters only once each day. On top of that, I was only permitted to hunt the monsters from 2D rank maelstroms and from 1C rank maelstroms. It was for the sake of increasing our levels as well as the DP I possessed that I wished for a splendid hunting ground. It's what I just taught you. A dungeon that longer has a demon lord and has fallen to chaos. You can freely hunt the monsters there. After I'm gone, you may do the same in this dungeon. I shook my head. As expected, even when I'm told that I could do anything I want with the monsters in here, I would hesitate. I don't mind doing so with the monsters that don't have any intelligence like the Garm, but for those that do, like the succubus, I can't say the same. And then, the person in question opened her mouth. Marchosias-sama, we won't allow that. Even after you're gone, we will still continue our primary purpose, and isn't it the protection of this demonic beast castle? We will continue doing protecting the dungeon that the great demon lord Marchosias-sama has built while punishing any misbehaving children. We won't bring disgrace to you nor let anybody do so. There was passion in her words. I was a little envious and wished I had subordinates like her. Is that so? Is that? Geez, you children are wasted on me. Marcho displayed a smile. Her popularity, which she had surely gained on her own, made the succubus say such things. I'm blessed to have subordinates like them, but not everyone is as fortunate. The Crimson Cavern I'm planning to show you is a dungeon where all the monsters that possessed intelligence have either died or abandoned it. All that's left are the mindless monsters rampaging to their heart's content. The only reason it hasn't been destroyed yet is because it's far enough away from the human settlements. Crimson Cavern. Hearing that name reminded me of flame. Could it perhaps be that the flame medal I received was from the demon lord that used to rule in that dungeon? I certainly won't mind hunting those mindless monsters. It would surely be tough if the enemy was a monster that possessed intelligence and reason like the succubus, but when they're mindless monsters like that, I wouldn't need to hesitate. You better not go unprepared. There may not be any high-ranking monsters that the demon lord himself has created anymore, but still, among the monsters the crystal is continually creating, C-rank monsters are all over the place. Then, it seems I'll somehow manage. The monsters as high as 2 ranks lower of the ones that had been created in synthesis before could be bought using DP. And unless one has the ability of the creation medal, they could create only up to a rank monsters. So that means that the crystals could create monsters only up to the C rank. However, Marcho groaned. But Tenko's incompatible with that place. Her specialty's using flame attacks, but almost all the monsters over there have high flame resistance and many are physically durable. If none of you can use water magic, then you need to dish out an overwhelmingly powerful attack without any flame attribute in it, but at your levels, that's pretty difficult. What? There's that kind of thing, huh? You don't have to worry though, we don't have any shortage on the attack department. Tenko, show Marcho the power of the weapon I made a while ago. Yay. Musical note, Tenko readied the weapon. It was the weapon I had just made a little while back using creation. It was a weapon according to my interpretation of Tenko's request that she wanted a close-range weapon with a big bang. Its form was of a shotgun's. The Remington M870P length, 1060 mm weight, 3.6 kg caliber, 12-gauge magazine size, 5+1 rounds, the strongest gun for close-range battles. Note: for the magazine size, the +1 means that the sixth one is in the gun's barrel. Chapter 8. Shotgun. What I made for Tenko was the Remington M870P length, 1060 mm weight, 3.6 kg caliber, 12-gauge magazine size, 6 rounds, a pump-action masterpiece. The Remington 870 was favored all over the world as the standard shotgun for its great durability and sturdiness. This model features a magazine capacity more than others. In the meanwhile, Tenko placed her finger on the trigger guard and skillfully whirled the gun around. What is that iron stick? By the looks of it, there doesn't seem to be any magic power running through it, but that doesn't outright mean that it's an ordinary weapon, now does it? Look forward to seeing it in action. A little while earlier, Tenko did some test firing and she ended up completely pleased with the Remington M870P. Even the dangerous gun may be nothing but an amusing toy for her. So, the four of us headed for where the maelstrom was. A monster was already created and it was sleeping somewhere near the swirl. Its distance was around 50 meters away from us. It was a demonic dog that had a red mane, the C-rank Orthros. If a C-rank Orthros is going to be created in a level that's fixed, it'll be at around level 40 to 50. Considering the difference of their rank and stats, I'd say Tenko-chan's at a considerable disadvantage. But I guess her special abilities would make it so that she's just at a slight disadvantage. Conversely, for Tenko to have that much fighting power at level 1 was abnormal. Such was a being called an S-rank. Had she been created to be at a fixed level, just how outside the norm could she had probably been? If, by any chance, you can defeat the Orthros without any magic, then you'll also be able to hunt at the Crimson Cavern. As Tenko heard those words, her eyes lit up and she made a clenched fist. Yay! Musical note. I'll level up quickly and be more useful to Oto-san. She said such a wonderful thing to me. Tenko then immediately took a deep breath. Additionally, she loaded the gun by means of a pump action. A stiff clink sound was heard. And then, she gave her enemy a stern look and charged at it. The red-maned demonic dog, having the ability to perceive incoming danger, was aware of Tenko. Originally, a celestial fox had flame magic as its specialty. It was then able to do one-sided battles from afar. This time, however, under the assumption that the enemy possessed a high resistance to flame, Tenko couldn't use any flame magic. The first to attack was the Orthros. It opened its mouth wide but Tenko did a quick sidestep. The rock that had been behind her exploded and its pieces scattered. It was the Orthros' offensive magic, acoustic destruction. As its name suggests, a cluster of high-frequency waves are directed towards the target. It travels at the speed of sound and it's invisible, so dodging it is awfully hard. But Tenko, she just did. Tenko won't be hit. 5 more steps. Tenko easily avoided the acoustic destruction fired in quick succession. But then, the Orthros closed its mouth. Did it stop its magic attacks? The moment I thought so, Tenko did another step, and acoustic destruction passed to the place she had just been. The act of the Orthros opening its mouth was probably nothing but a sham. A viscous trap for ensuring the kill by making its target think that it has to open its mouth for an attack to come flying in that direction. But then, Tenko reacted the first time it shot with its mouth closed. The secret to that lied with her skills. With precognition, Tenko was able to sense the world 1 second ahead. And, with the use of another of her skills, ultra-rapid reaction, she was able to respond to any threat a second before it could happen. Harming Tenko, who uses these 2 skills, was an extremely difficult thing to accomplish. To do so, one had no choice but to use attacks that she wouldn't be able to respond to even if she saw them beforehand. It was, after all, but a second. However, if one had Tenko's absurd agility and ultra-rapid reaction, it was more than enough. One more step. It was when she was only 10 meters away from the Orthros that Tenko stopped her steps and prepared her Remington M870P. The gun's long barrel looked unbalanced for the small Tenko. Oto-san, I'm gonna use your weapon now. And so, Tenko pulled the trigger. The distance between them was around 10 meters, but that much was well within the gun's effective range. Shotguns had the image of being only usable at close range, but 50 meters was more than enough for its bullets to reach and kill its targets. In fact, it was unnecessary for Tenko to shorten their distance and could have instead attacked from her initial position. However, she had probably thought that by going closer, a fatal blow would be dealt. Then, the shotgun shell exploded into many tiny pieces, and these tiny pieces poured down as if it was rain. By instinct alone, the Orthros leapt to the side, but avoiding all of the shotgun's shrapnel was impossible. The Orthros received many projectiles and became covered in blood. It then tumbled with a thud. What the heck is that? Wearing a surprised expression on her face, Marcho was staring at Tenko, who fired the shotgun. A weapon I made using my unique skill. I can't sense any magic power at all from it, but that power, it's astounding. Rather than magic power, it's because of the power of science. Tenko shortened her distance from the blown away Orthros. And then, she moved the lower part of the gun's barrel, it clicked and loaded the next bullet. At almost a point-blank range, she pulled the trigger once more. This time, however, the shell didn't explode. The shell flew straight into the head of the Orthros, blowing off everything from the neck up. The Orthros turned into blue particles and then vanished. The round she used this time was a slug shell. In a nutshell, slugs were large caliber, single projectile bullets. It was powerful beyond words. It even rivaled a blow from an anti-materiel rifle, which were developed for use against armored vehicles. Note: not a typo, it's really anti-materiel rifle. Tenko's shotgun had been loaded with alternating charges of shot and slug shells, employing a basic strategy of using shot shells to stop the enemy's movements and the slug shell to finish it off. Oto-san, I killed it. Tenko proudly waved her hand. When I looked at her status, I saw that her level went up to 3. Considering that she just killed a level 50 Orthros, it was understandable that her level grew in a single leap. Well done, Tenko. Come over here so that I can praise you. Yay. Musical note: after she hanged the shotgun to her shoulder using the strap attached to it, she then embraced me. Her tail was swinging, and as I stroked her head, her tail's movement sped up. Marcho had an amazed look on her face when she opened her mouth. I see. Certainly, if you had this, such things as flame resistance wouldn't matter. This weapon's attack correction's quite impressive, isn't it? In this world, there existed the concept of attack power. It's equal to the sum of one's own status and their weapons. In other words, weapons, even guns, would not deliver the same effect no matter who uses it. However, a gun's attack power was very high, so unless a monster with a very high status showed up, the equipment wearer's stats would be compensated for. For this reason, I would create a skeleton army. If they were to use a gun, then there would be no difference between fighting a C rank or G rank monster. You're blessed not only with your medal but in your unique skill too. I honestly thought so too. It was possible to put this skill in practical use. With this, it seems you're capable of going to the Crimson Cavern even by tomorrow. Just to be safe though, go there after you and Tenko have become level 10. The way you guys are right now, you'll surely win, but against enemies stronger than C rank, if you're hit just once, it's all over. Better give yourselves some leeway, especially if you're going with just the two of you. As she said, it was scary to be ambushed. Although we might be able to defeat them, hunting wherein we could die from a single blow was nothing but suicidal. We'll do just that. Tenko, until we've hit level 10, we're going to fight the monsters that come from the maelstrom every day. Boo. I wanna get stronger quickly. She puffed her face as though she was dissatisfied. Upon smiling wryly, I used creation to produce a caramel, and threw it into her mouth. For a moment, she was surprised, but she immediately broke into a smile, held her cheeks, and chewed on the caramel. She looked like she had already forgotten about her dissatisfaction earlier and instead, had become fully engrossed with the caramel. Your creation medal alone was astonishing, but now, you can even make weapons. It's a useful ability to bolster not just your own fighting strength but also your monsters. You really are fit to be a demon lord. I think so, too. By the way, how about you? What's your ability? You know mine, so is it alright if I knew yours? Marcho heard my question and pondered for a while. And after that while passed, she spoke. My ability is White Wolf Transformation. It's exceedingly simple, it raises my constitution as well as my recovery rate. Just that. It's precisely because it's simple that it is a good ability. Well, yeah, I guess. It's thanks to this ability that I have never been defeated, neither against any human nor any demon lord. I listened to her words about demon lords and I slightly readied myself. Although I had expected it looked like demon lords really did fight with their fellow demon lords sometimes. The Crimson Cavern, though, if you can muster up a sizable fighting force, then it may be a good idea to conquer that dungeon and break the crystal. Why would I want to do that? It's like ruining a convenient hunting ground. After all, by defeating monsters, I could level up. And it could also be an indirect supply of DP. It was better to have a dungeon I could use at my will. When one breaks a crystal, you see, it allows them to create the crystal owner's metal. So with that as their objective, some demon's lords would break another's crystal. If what you're saying is true, then I'm extremely at risk. It seems like I'll be targeted instantly. That's why you should keep your creation a firm secret. I nodded my head. Although I would still live after my crystal was broken, my powers as a demon lord wouldn't be as fortunate. Besides, Oto-san, that was sweet and delicious. May I have another? Yes, of course. Here. Thanks. I love you, Oto-san. When a crystal was broken, all the monsters it had created would vanish. I didn't want to part ways with this girl. I understand. For the moment, I'll try to sincerely think about conquering Crimson Cavern. But I've been wondering, how has the Crimson Cavern remained intact until now? Isn't it strange that it hasn't been destroyed by humans and other demon lords? Marcho smiled. She looked towards the sky as if she was remembering something. Once upon a time, monsters had guarded the demon lord-less Crimson Cavern. But at present, the aides of various demon lords guarding the place have either abandoned, been killed or just simply died. And so, after they were gone, I was the one to guard it. In order to protect the crystal, I've deployed some of my rank monsters. To other demon lords, I use that place to farm and increase my levels, but if ever they make a move on it, I threaten them with war. Having a hunting ground you can use at any time is important after all. No one really likes the idea of letting their own monsters prey on one another. Officially, sure, I protect it for a place to let my darling monsters increase their levels. But that's only half of the reason why I do it. The other is because of sentiment. The demon lord of that place and I were on good terms. I just couldn't let the proof that an important friend of mine lived vanish. That's how things are supposed to be, but for some reason, I don't seem mind if you were the one to break that crystal. You're a good person, aren't you? How so? Well, anyway, you should get some sleep. For some reason, only sleep is a must for demon lords and monsters. Together with Tenko, when you guys have become level 10, contact me via succubus, okay? It's so that I can bring you to the Crimson Cavern. Right after she said those words, Marcho was gone. She probably returned to her own room by transferring. This time was about the usefulness of shotguns and the circumstances of demon lords. I learned many kinds of things. Chapter 9. Skeleton Squad. About a week passed since I heard the story about the Crimson Cavern from Marcho. During the past week, I have made a stock of weapons using creation. All while focusing on leveling up. And so, even at this moment, Tenko was engaging in battle. Free of any danger, Tenko dodged an attack from the C-rank monster Orthros and proceeded to close in on it. She defeated it in a blow using her shotgun, the Remilton M870P. The Orthros turned into blue particles and vanished. At the same time, Tenko's body shined palely. Oto-san, I've become level 10. Great job. With this, we can now go to the Crimson Cavern. At last, Tenko reached level 10. I guess it's because of her great delight, but her eyes were sparkling while her fluffy fox tail was swinging. I had already reached level 10 ahead of her, so that meant Tenko and I had then cleared the requirement given to us by Marcho in order for us to be taken to the Crimson Cavern. Oto-san, let's go right away. Hurry, let's go to where Marcho-sama is. Tenko lead me by the hand as if to say she couldn't wait anymore. We were only able to fight 3 times a day, so we had begun to accumulate a fair amount of stress. No, not today. Let's go tomorrow. Moo. Why? I want to give the skeletons one last tuning. Each passing day, I diligently made M and KMK 416 assault rifles. In the same span of that time, I had also purchased 9 skeletons. I was able to afford the skeletons due to the 660 DP I earned by doing the daily monster hunt. The storing away of monsters, which was a demon lord's skill, allowed one to bring up to 10 of their monsters. If that was the case, I thought it would be a waste for the number of my monsters to be far below the limit. And so, I bought the skeletons. Each one was a cheap monster that costed only 20 DP. When created to be at a fixed level, they would randomly be at level 1 to 10. Because of that, it didn't really matter if they were created to be at a fixed level or not, and if so, somehow the better option was to let them be able to grow because, in their case, they were able to level up to level 20. By the way, in the case of a celestial fox, they would randomly be born at around level 70 to 80. If they could level up, they could go as high as level 90. Skeletons are, like, weak monsters, aren't they? Tenko had a dislike towards skeletons. Well, she is a girl, so it's understandable. Well, yeah, they sure are weak. I won't deny that. The skeleton's status was terrible. Race: skeleton. G rank. Name: unnamed. Level: 1 physical strength, E plus endurance, E agility, F magic power, F luck, G special, G skill. The deceased. The act itself of comparing it with Tenko was presumptuous. From the start, the skeleton had nothing of note except for its cost to performance efficiency. I can fight all by myself. Maybe, but even if they were to only guard our backs, I'll appreciate it. They'll also provide us additional firepower which we need. So, they'll be fighting alongside us. Let me show you that they aren't just things to cast aside. Total attack power in this world was calculated by means of an addition. Even if the attacker's own offensive ability was low, the gun's firepower would compensate for it. The attack power of skeletons equipped with M and KMK-416 assault rifles could be compared to B-rank monsters. Tenko had a dislike towards the skeletons, so she wasn't there to witness their training, but this looked the right opportunity to show her their abilities. Released skeletons. I summoned the 9 skeletons I stored away in a different dimension. Each of them carried an assault rifle in their hands. Skeletons, you are now able to put up quite a fight due to my training. Today will be your last day of training. Quote. The skeletons looked at me with eye sockets that didn't have any light. They were but just bones, so they didn't understand things like emotions. For the time being, they held only enough intelligence to hear my orders. Issuing a response was something they were not capable of. Teaching monsters with low intelligence was a difficult task. I almost gave up halfway through. Nonetheless, after all my hardship, I was able to teach them 3 commands. All members, ready. The skeletons readied their guns to the target I pointed at. Before they shoot, they must first aim at the target. For this instance, the target was a wooden pole dressed in armor. All members, fire. As I uttered those words, the skeletons started firing. The ta-ta-ta-ta sounds were like music to my ears. The MK-416 the skeletons were holding were not on full auto mode but was instead set to semi-automatic mode. The full auto mode was a system wherein there was an automatic operation between the reloading and firing of the bullets. In other words, as long as the trigger was pulled, the gun would continue to fire in quick succession. In contrast, the semi-automatic mode was a system wherein only the reloading of the bullets was done automatically. The amount of bullets fired would be the same as the amount of times the trigger was pulled. If the full auto mode was selected, the skeletons would just exhaust through their ammunition without even giving a thought. Ideally speaking, I wanted it to be set on full auto mode and just make them do burst fires by lifting their finger from the trigger. However, I was not able to make them remember such a complicated action, and so I instead just gave up on it. All member, stop. The skeletons released the trigger and stopped firing. The commands I was able to make them remember was these 3. Ready, fire, and shoot. I guess they'd be able to fight somehow. It took a while for them to reach this point. In the beginning, they not only regarded the gun as a blunt weapon but they also had trouble pulling the trigger. It took 4 days but they had finally learned it. Well, even to this point, they were still unable to change magazines, so I have to be mindful of it in each battle. But it was worth it. The sight of the 9 skeletons firing all at once was a magnificent. When I have my own dungeon in the future, I will increase their number and also build an even more vicious unit. How is it? It's amazing, isn't it? But Odo-san, if you're going to have trouble teaching them such things, wouldn't it be much better to just make a smarter monster? The mythological fox, a monster in the same lineage as Tenko, is smart and strong, you know. I know, but they're expensive. The mythological fox was a B-rank monster. Their basic abilities were high as well as their intelligence. Learning how to use a gun was probably an easy thing to do for them. However, each one would cost 1200 PTS. I would be able to buy 60 skeletons with that amount. I know. But the skeletons seem quite inefficient to me. When they die, which they do in an instant, all the time it took to train them would then become a waste. In that case, right from the start, strong and hard to kill monsters should be bought, right? I had thought about that. The skeletons were cheap and I would still have the weapons anyway. Unfortunately, however, the time it took to train them could never be gotten back. No, wait. What if I made a monster that will train the skeletons and then afterwards let that guy take care of the skeletons? It's simple if you think about it. There were a lot of monsters like the Lich that made use of the undead. Those kind monsters were extremely intelligent as well as being capable of understanding speech. They might even be able to do a much better job than I did at training the skeletons. I'll think about making an undead the next time I obtained an original medal. Thanks, Tenko. I've decided. I'll think about making a ruler of the undead as soon as I obtain a medal related to the undead. Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, there should be a fellow among the undead that does something like using corpses and making further undead. If it used the corpses of powerful humans and monsters, then it was able to create powerful monsters at no cost. My dream just kept on getting bigger. Ugh. Tenko doesn't like the undead, but for Oto-san, Tenko will endure. You're admirable, Tenko. Yay. Musical note. And so, the training of the skeletons ended. Afterwards, we reported to Marcho that we have already reached level 10. It was decided that tomorrow, Tenko and the undead equipped with the guns will towards the Crimson Cavern. Chapter 10. Crimson Cavern, are those your subordinate monsters? Marcho, with a stiff smile on her face, said so to me. Aren't they precious? Tenko and I had raised our levels until the recommended level of 10. Succubus then transferred us and we met with Marcho. Naturally, it was for the sake of being guided to the Crimson Cavern. The skeleton squad would also be taken along. Each of them carried an M&K MK416 assault rifle and it was a spectacle. The combination of the emotionless skeletons and their boorish guns gave quite the atmosphere. This is the first time for me to see a demon lord really make use of something like a skeleton. If it's me that uses them, even skeletons would be a splendid force in battle. That's certainly true. It may not even matter who uses that weapon. You've thought about it well. In an instant, Marcho had seen through my plans. As expected of a skilled demon lord. Procel, 1 Tenko, and 9 skeletons. Well, somehow you've managed to have 10 monsters, a full party. For a newly born demon lord, that's a considerable battle potential. Like this, I'll have some peace of mind and be able to send you out. However, I'll say it again, do not get careless out there. But of course, I had no intention to venture deep this time. I did want to someday break the crystal and have the ability to create its owner's original medal, but as one would expect with my still incomplete fighting force, I wasn't able to do so yet. Only after I had 3 monsters of the Covenant and get them to level 50 would I plan to conduct a full-scale conquest of that place. Until then, I shall focus on leveling up and earning DP on the early floors, which I could always return to at any time. Well, you are prudent and smart, so you probably won't do anything rash. Just to be safe though, I'll lend you Succubus. Succubus, I ask that you look after him. Is that alright? If I'm not around, the monsters from the residential area won't be able to transfer anywhere. It's fine. Rama has to be put to work once in a while. I'll be relieved if Rama-sama did work. It's likely that Rama isn't a race's name but rather a given name. If Marcho went so far as to name it, it was probably a very powerful monster. Well then, Succubus, look after him. And although I asked you to help him out, if ever there came a situation that you are forced to choose between your life and his, choose to protect your own. To create a situation wherein he's driven to a corner like that, Procel has nothing else to blame but his own foolishness. You need not hesitate about it. She said some severe things but they were reasonable. To start with, just lending Succubus was very generous of her. A B-rank monster was a valuable asset. Certainly, Marchosias-sama. Well then, we'll be heading out. Yeah, take care. The conversation between the master and her follower concluded. Succubus then deployed a magic array. Wait a moment. Succubus's magic can be used to transfer us even outside the dungeon. Succubus was concentrating on deploying the magic, so instead of her, Marcho opened her mouth to answer my question. If there's a magic array prepared beforehand, then yes. Transferring from one array to another is an application of the magic of a succubus, a monster that slips in into dreams. However, she can only bring along with her a maximum of 2 people. What a convenient ability. In the future, if ever I got a hold of a metal that can make a succubus, I would definitely want to make one. The lich that controls the undead and the succubus that could use transfer magic. The monsters that I wanted to make were rapidly increasing. Creation, Demon Lord Procel Sama, the preparations are complete. We may leave at any time. Understood. Let's go immediately. I stored away the skeletons and the 2 of us, Tenko and I, moved close to Succubus. And then, blue light filled the magic array that Succubus had called forth. Ah. Procel, I forgot to tell you something important. Very soon, all the demon lords will assemble. Marcho spoke halfway through the transfer magic. While I worried about her news, my body was wrapped around in light. And so, for the first time since I was born, I went outside of Marcho's dungeon. So hot. Such were the first words I uttered upon arrival. This place was humid. As one would imagine from its name, the Crimson Cavern featured pretty high temperatures. Rather than being in a cave, one would have the impression as though they were inside a volcano. All around us was earth and stones, illuminated by the brightness of the flames. The path ahead was wide, probably more than 3 meters wide. I immediately deployed the skeletons. They made clattering sounds as they formed a line. Oto-san, do you feel hot? How about you? Do you feel alright? Tenko feels fine. For Tenko, who ruled over fire, this much heat seemed like it was no trouble at all. It's hot for me too, so I don't really like going here. The succubus similarly felt hot. And although she was always lightly dressed even under normal circumstances, her eye-catching way of pulling the hem of her clothes allowed me to see various things I shouldn't have. Incidentally, the skeleton squad did nothing but rattle their bones. I had no idea what exactly they were thinking about. If you both feel hot, then Tenko will cool it down. Just as she said, the temperature of our surrounding dropped. Is this Tenko's magic? It is. Does Oto-san feel better? Yeah. It's cooler and feels much better now. It helps a lot. Tenko had the skill called Ruler of the Flame. Its effects were that it gave the flame attributed magic spells maximum power-ups while also decreasing its consumption of magic power. Not to mention that it also allowed its user to control all flames within their vicinity. The true nature of flame magic was that it manipulated of the amount of heat of its target, and thus it was also very much capable to lower the amount of heat it had. If things went on to be this pleasant, we would then be able to hunt in good spirits. This is to express my gratitude. I used creation to make a caramel. Upon doing so, Tenko opened up her mouth wide, so I threw it in there. Yay. Musical note. Tenko, who had been getting addicted to caramel lately, looked happy as she tasted it. There's one thing prior I'd like to tell you. Succubus halted our departure. And then, she pointed under our feet. My transfer magic, when used outside of Marchosias-sama's dungeon, only allows me to jump from one array to the next. In other words, if we wished to return to Marchosias-sama's dungeon right away, we have to go all the way back to the array which is engraved in this place. So I hope you take note of our exact path. I understand. I'll pay attention to it. It probably was possible to exit the dungeon normally but not using transfer, and instead walking all the way back to Marcho's dungeon was a thought I didn't want to entertain. So I used creation and created a transmitter. Furthermore, I also used creation to make a receiver and a smartphone. I then installed the receiver on the smartphone. There wasn't any GPS, so producing a map was impossible, but if I were to use an app, I would at least know the directions. For the moment, I tucked the smartphone in my breast pocket. The record function was turned on. It might come in handy in the worst case scenario. I remembered each and every kind of gun there was and was even able to prepare this kind of thing, but just what the heck kind of person was I? The mystery only deepened. I probably wasn't a decent guy. Succubus, is there anything else? Nothing more from me. Well then, let's go. Yay, musical note. Let's kill lots. All our preparations were complete. We headed out for real this time. Chapter 11. The Skeleton's Weak Points at last, my first dungeon exploration. I'm here not only to hunt down monsters but also because I wanted to properly examine the construction of this dungeon which was created by another demon lord. I will use this as reference for when I build my own dungeon in the future. My current thoughts were to place the very first floor above ground and build a wealthy town on it. And then, the second floor onwards would spread below the ground, to which I would deploy a great number of monsters and traps so that my crystal would not be broken. Since DP would be gained from the humans gathered on the town on the first floor, the underground floors wouldn't be built for attracting adventurers. It would instead be a ruthless place whose only purpose was to kill any intruder. As I thinking that this will be an exploration full of tension, Tenko yawned. Oto-san. There's nothing to do. Yeah, you're right. We were walking in the dungeon which seemed like the inside of a volcano. Dirt and rocks surrounded the cave and the red magma in the distance illuminated it. I was tensed and anxious about what kind of exploration this would turn out to be, but it seemed like it was completely unnecessary. The reason for that was Gyaaaaaa. The enormous salamander that could and would swallow humans whole roared forward and the air burned. I knew of this from experience, it was the strength equal to AC rank. However, tatatatata, like music to my ears. The moment the enormous lizard with fire escaping from its mouth appeared, the skeletons fired simultaneously, their bullets like a swarm of bees. By no means were the enemy monster weak, the stats of AC rank monster was nothing to scoff at. However, the offensive capabilities of the skeletons were just too high. The skeletons, of course, showed no reaction. Quote ellipsis ellipsis quote. Devoid of any boasting, the skeletons lowered their guns and began walking. They were unfeeling precision machines that completed their task in full composure. They were pure professionals. I estimated the number of the bullets left based from the number they fired. I concluded that there was no need yet to reload. No matter how much training they did, the skeletons couldn't be made to remember how to change magazines by themselves, so the task of managing the amount of bullets was left to me. Looking at those skeletons, Tenko suddenly puffed her cheeks. The skeletons got to it first again. Tenko stamped her foot in the ground in frustration. Well, they can't help it. Their range is different than yours. The skeletons were under the command of both ready and fire, so if they found something, they'll immediately fire at it. Moreover, I divided them into two groups, the front and the back group, and had them keep watch on all directions. The skeletons performed better than expected, dealing instant death to any monster the moment they encountered it. The 400 meters effective range of the rifle wasn't just for show. On the other hand, Tenko's shotgun only had 50 meters of effective range. Before Tenko had the chance to be near the monster, the skeletons would have already shot it down. Oto-san. Tenko wants to fight too. I'm going to keep you on reserve for when a monster that the skeletons can't handle appears. The monsters that the skeletons couldn't handle were the ones whose movements were too fast to which the skeletons couldn't land any decent hit, and the ones whose defenses were too tough that the 5.56mm bullet couldn't penetrate. In such occasions, it would be Tenko's turn to shine. No matter how agile the opponent was, it would be easy for Tenko to catch up to them. And she was equipped with a shotgun, a Remilton M870P, which was equal to the power of a large caliber rifle. Almost all of our enemies would agree to its power. Tenko didn't seem convinced, but for the moment, she had calmed down. But being in a party really helps out a lot. It was thanks to Succubus that I knew of the existence of parties. She taught me everything I knew regarding parties. The maximum possible members of a party were 10, and the experience obtained by them was distributed equally among the members. Additionally, all the DP went to the Demon Lord. There was no reason not to make use it. In fact, the skeletons had already raised their levels earlier, and as for Tenko, she had gained the proportional amount of experience. Making the skeletons able to grow in levels was the right decision. At this rate, it would seem that they would be over level 10 in an instant. When I felt someone's gaze on me and turned around in response, I saw that Succubus was shifting her gaze between me and the skeletons. You truly are the creation, Demon Lord. I would have never imagined the skeletons to become this strong. The skeletons, who were normally easily defeated even by C-ranks monsters, were gazed upon by Succubus in awe. Only their attack power is on par to AB rank. Their defense, however, remains the same. They'll still die from a single blow. But if they're attacking that far away, wouldn't receiving an attack themselves be something impossible? We can never tell. A surprise attack may happen. Well, even if they were to die, it's no big loss. Their cheapness was their selling point anyway. Even if a skeleton died, only 20 DP would be lost, so it won't hurt my finances. Such were the advantage offered by the skeletons, just don't think about the time it takes to train them. As I pondered that, the ground shook. It was quite near. Kua. A high-pitched cry rose and then the enemy jumped out of the ground, right in the center of our formation. It was a fire snake. As I stared on it, its name and rank popped into my mind. It would seem my level ups had enhanced my Demon Lord abilities, and now, I could see not only the enemy's level but also its name, rank as well as its abilities. Unfortunately, at my current level, it was only applicable up to monsters of D rank and the details of their parameters weren't visible. Race. Flame Viper, D rank name. Unnamed level, 38 skills. Underground movement blaze. The skeletons were completely defenseless against the fire snake that appeared from the ground. The snake wrapped its torso around the skeleton that was closest to the place the snake popped up. The skeleton had the paper-thin defense of AG rank monsters, so of course it was crushed in an instant. I clicked my tongue at what was transpiring. The enemy was right in the center of our formation, thus ordering the skeletons fire their guns was out of the question. Skeletons, stop. I issued an order to stop firing to the skeletons, who were told before to shoot any enemy as soon as they discovered it. Otherwise, they would have fallen due to friendly fire. I grinded my teeth at the fact that aside from the skeletons' lack of defensive capabilities, situations like these were also their weakness. However, if the skeletons stopped shooting, it only meant that the snake was allowed to do whatever it pleased. And so, the fire snake sprang upon the next skeleton. Won't let you. As Tenko said so, she sprinted forward. She couldn't use her shotgun while her allies were gathered together, so she drew the large military-grade knife hanging from her back. Rather than a knife, it was more of a machete. It was a jet-black heavy blade with a length of 50 cm. Tenko didn't hesitate to put a firm grip on the fire snake's head. She then raised the large military knife over her head and a moment later, lopped off the snake's head. The snake's headless body twitched and shook. There was nothing else the snake, even with all its strong vitality, could do once it lost its head. Oto-san, I did it. Tenko turned towards me, and while her hands held the lopped-off head of the snake, her face held innocence. Great job, Tenko. It truly was. Had she not defeated the fire snake right away, 2 or maybe even 3 skeletons may have suffered damage. As usual, the snake turned into particles of light. The skeleton which I went to the trouble of teaching it on how to use a gun also changed into particles of light. What's this? The snake's corpse didn't completely vanish. In its place was a hard fang. When I picked it up and tapped on it, a sound like it was almost metal rung. Era, an item drop. Succubus told me so in a slightly cheerful tone. An item drop. Yes, if one's lucky, a part of the monster where magic power was concentrated will remain after the monster's death. Monsters that have already lived a long life are more likely to give an item drop. There are some among the humans that challenge dungeons for these item drops. I see. That must be why I almost wouldn't see an item drop in Marcho's dungeon. After all, I only fought the monsters coming from the maelstroms, which were just newly born monsters. Thanks for telling me. And then, I think I'm going to hold off on using the skeletons for a while. While one-sidedly barraging our enemies far from their range was great, should an unforeseen situation like this one, wherein the enemy had managed to shorten the distance, once again occur, their fragility won't go unpunished. As I thought before, I want a commander. A commander that could move the skeletons as though they were its own limbs. Oto-san, I have a great idea. Stop using these skeletons and make a mythological fox instead. They're strong, they can talk, they're smart, and rather than having these bones, you'll have lots of cute foxes. Well, maybe someday. I wouldn't have enough DP. Besides, I want to create an army of not 10 nor 20 but hundreds of monsters right away. The mythological fox was too pricey for that. However, I'm not saying I'm not interested in having a lot of foxes. Maybe someday when I have a bit of extra DP. And so, while the skeletons may have almost owned their enemies, this shall mark the end of their first level up session. Losing one skeleton which has finished its training was painful, but it shall serve as a lesson, and I had thought of how to make best use of this learned lesson. The author, Tsukiyo Rui Sensei, wants to take this opportunity to promote the release of the first volume of her other work, Upstart Pastry Chef The Territory Management of a Genius Patissier. It will launch on the 30th of October, although Futabasha states it will be available on the 29th. The synopsis say that it's about a genius pastry chef reincarnated into a noble albeit of low nobility. And after some twists, becomes the ruling lord of an area. And so, he want to build up his territory while also fulfilling his previous life's dream of becoming the best pastry chef. Chapter 12. Tenko's little sister. We have been back and forth to the Crimson Cavern for about 3 weeks now, ever since our first visit there. Today was no exception. Tenko was sprinting inside the cave. She found an enemy. The target this time was a red falcon gliding in the sky. Of course, it was no ordinary falcon. It was a C-rank monster, the fire-eater bird. It was going to swoop in from high above, using its sharp beak and talons to attack. Although it's what one might call a narrow cave, the falcon flew while it skillfully maneuvered itself. Catching the fire-eater bird would have probably been a difficult task. But not for Tenko. Give up. She fired her shotgun, a Remington M870P. She was properly making use of the two kinds of bullets. The one she fired this time was a shotshell. It was a kind of bullet that bursts out after it was fired from the bourriche gun. And so, the shotshell scattered in a wide arc and the red falcon flying at a high speed in the air was easily hit. The red falcon was hit in the wing and came crashing down. Following it up, Tenko charged. She slid the pump along the gun's barrel, agilely loading the next bullet. Her shotgun was loaded with alternating rounds of shot shells and slugs, and the next to be fired was, of course, the ultra-high-powered slug shell. She hit the enemy in the torso and made the red falcon's body scatter. How was it, Oto-san? Did you see? She turned around in glee. Yeah, I saw it clearly. You were amazing, Tenko. Yay. Musical note. Her fox tail was swinging. She liked hunting and goes into a good mood whenever she moved her body. As of late, I had deployed just a few skeletons whose duty was only to guard our backs. I then left all the enemies ahead to Tenko. I have done so because it was a waste to share experience points to the skeletons who have already reached their maximum level. Their maximum level, if made to be able to grow, by the way, was 20. Besides all that, I just wanted to let Tenko do whatever pleased her. Let's head back little by little. Alright, Oto-san. Fatigue would hinder our judgment, so it was better to not to exhaust ourselves and save some strength for the way back. Hunting each day made Tenko's level rise to 30 while I was a bit behind at 29. From around the time she reached level 30, her level up progression was almost unmoving. According to Succubus, high-ranking monsters had a harder time to go up in levels. Our levels would probably not move much after this if we only fought C-rank monsters as our enemies. Oto-san, may we eat something delicious after we got back? Leave it to me. My level has increased and so did my MP. It rose to 3,450, so I had some leeway on my MP usage. That leeway mostly consisted of fulfilling Tenko's wishes though. Today, I'll fully restore her spirits. It's finally tomorrow, huh? What is it, Oto-san? Why are you grinning? Tenko will soon have a little brother or sister. Medals could only be made once a month and the privilege to make one would finally return to me tomorrow. Tenko's little brother or sister. Yes. I'll create it using my creation medal, the Earth medal I got from Marcho, and then an imitation medal. The new monster will be another S-rank monster like Tenko. S-rank. I recalled what Marcho told me. If both the medals used were a rank medals, there was a 1/3 chance to have a B-rank monster and a 2/3 chance to have an A-rank monster. And if a rank and B-rank medals were used, there was a 2/3 chance to create a B-rank monster and a 1/3 chance to have an A-rank monster. Now, if my A-rank creation medal was then added, it's alright to think that the results would go up by an entire rank. In other words, if I used my medal with the A-rank, Earth original medal and a B-rank imitation of either beast, person, or flame, there was a possibility that an S-rank monster would be born. And a possibility was all I needed. My creation medal states that it allows the maker to choose the desired outcome out of the myriads of possible outcomes. In short, an S rank was pretty much guaranteed. Although, if the imitation medal wasn't an imitation of an A rank medal, the possibility of creating an S-rank monster wouldn't exist in the first place. But this was something I only knew by intuition. S rank was the highest rank. All the monsters that can no longer be sorted as an A rank were all together at S rank. By that definition, each S rank monster would not be the same as the others in terms of their capabilities. S rank monsters as high-end as Tenko probably couldn't be made if even a single imitation metal was mixed in during fusion. Aren't you happy about having a little brother or sister? Tenko looked depressed. Oto-san. She tightly gripped my sleeve. What's wrong, Tenko? If the new monster is stronger than Tenko, will Oto-san not need Tenko anymore? Tenko had anxiety all over face and looked at my own with her upturned eyes. Some tears were threatening to fall. How silly, there was no need for such worries. I promise. I absolutely won't do that. I love Tenko, after all. Even if the new monster is stronger than you, I will always need you. I embraced her and patted her head. And as I did so, she leaned over me. Tenko might be a cunning, clever, and calculating child, but she was also a lonely one. And an extraordinarily spoilt child too. Yay, musical note. It's a promise, Oto-san. She raised her head up and called for attention. Yeah, I know, I promise. Just like that, Tenko kissed my cheek. Tenko. It's a promise kiss. Oto-san has to absolutely, definitely keep his promise. Maybe it's because she herself was embarrassed, but her face reddened and separated away from me. She then trotted towards the transfer array that Succubus was preparing. After we returned to our house in Marcho's dungeon, the two of us, Tenko and I, had a meal. The skeletons were stored away. There wasn't enough space for them here. It was a little bit awkward. She was still feeling shy about the kiss earlier. I used creation to make her favorite food, the steak, but she still ate her meal slowly. While I thought that, she opened her mouth. Oto-san, what kind of monster will you make this time? Her voice trembled for a bit. It was probably her desperate attempt to break the ice. Oh, yeah. I initially thought of making a higher-ranking undead-type monster. Training the skeletons consumed a lot of effort. If I was able to call forth a high-ranking monster with high intelligence and could also command the skeletons at will, I would then be able to train the skeletons in an easier and not to mention more efficient manner than what I was doing currently. You talk like you're not going to anymore. Yeah. After all, the earth metal is the only original metal I have right now. I won't seem to have great options if we factor in the attributes that imitation metals and my creation would add. Earth and the undead didn't have a poor compatibility, but that didn't mean they were perfectly compatible neither. If that was the case, I thought it would then be better for me to wait for a more compatible metal. I see, but then, what will you make? It's going to be Tenko's little sister or brother, so it should be cute. Tenko chimed in. Her awkwardness was gradually going away. It was great. I think I'll make a dwarf that can do some smithing. Earth and dwarves have excellent compatibility. Also, I'll use an imitation of person. Finally, transform creation to alchemy. I had heard of the existence of alchemy from Marcho. She was teaching me as much as she could about metals that seemed useful. Her lessons would certainly be used as guidelines on what kind of monster I'll make. I intended to summon the highest ranking dwarf using earth, person, and alchemy. Why a dwarf? They're not that strong. Well, they're not really for battle. I plan to use them for their smithing abilities. But aren't Oto-san's weapons strong enough? Yeah, they are, but don't you want to see them be even more powerful? Let's take your shotgun, the Remilton M870P, as an example. If we increase the amount of powder and also increase the size of the bullets, its attack power will jump up. Whoa, that's fantastic. Tenko wants that shotgun. Tenko's eyes sparkled as she imagined it as a new toy to play with. I smiled wryly at that. For a shotgun like Tenko's, the size of the bullet is measured by gauge. The smaller the number of the gauge, the larger the caliber becomes. The power of the gun will increase too. The standard for the Remilton M870P is a 12-gauge shell. However, shells range from 4-gauge up to 24-gauge. The power of a 4-gauge and a 12-gauge differ by about 3 times. But, regrettably, the Remilton M870 only uses 12-gauge and there aren't any shotguns in my memory that uses the 4-gauge shells. 4-gauge shells were considerably unique shells. A 12-gauge was 18.1 mm in diameters, but a 4-gauge shell measured 25.2 mm, roughly 1.5 times larger in size. Even bears and sea lions were not a match for 10-gauge shells, and 4 gauges were really only used when going against something like a tank. That's disappointing. I want to shoot the triple-powered 4-gauge. Tenko might be disappointed, but it's only natural for something like that to not exist in my memory. Their recoils were too strong that they were not practical. No person could use it. It's no problem for Tenko. Tenko's strong. What Tenko said was true. The physical strength of monsters might just be able to handle a 4-gauge shotgun. It might not be a problem for Tenko, but the gun itself may not be able to bear it. 4-gauge shotguns were used in an era when black powder was the main component, whereas modern-day shotguns employed smokeless powder. Smokeless powder delivered more power than black powder, so a gun that could endure being used with 4-gauge shells made of smokeless powder probably didn't exist. Guns have no guts at all. I wish they'd work harder. She puffed her cheeks and uttered such absurd things. I couldn't understand what she's feeling. Another thing, there aren't any 4-gauge shells in my memory to begin with, so I can't make any with my creation. I can't make any, so of course there wasn't any of it. Oto-san's mean. Now I'm not excited anymore. Don't give up so quickly. I only said that I can't make any using creation. If by chance we have a remarkable blacksmith, they will be able to disassemble the gun I made using creation, examine its construction, make a 4-gauge shell, and reconstruct a shotgun which can use the said 4-gauge shells. Furthermore, there are magic metals in this world. If a bullet was made using these magic metals, the bullet alone would increase the weapon's power. And if we made the gun using magic metals, it just might be able to endure firing 4-gauge shells. That much was my goal, to improve our weapons. Moreover, if I may be so greedy, I wished for a mass production of weapons that didn't rely on my creation. I was aware of the performance of the skeletons through our daily level-up battles, and I aimed to push them beyond that. I get it. A dwarf really was most suited. They'll make Tenko's shotgun even more amazing. Tenko was hyped up, suddenly straightening her fluffy fox tail. It looked like someone excited about her new favorite toy. Well, I was the same. My thoughts went from our new companion, the dwarf, to the new weapons it would create. The author, Tsukiyo Rui Sensei, wants to take this opportunity to promote the release of the first volume of her other work, Upstart Pastry Chef The Territory Management of a Genius Patissier. It will launch on the 30th of October, although Futabasha states it will be available on the 29th. The synopsis say that it's about a genius pastry chef reincarnated into a noble, albeit of low nobility. And after some twists, becomes the ruling lord of an area. And so, he want to build up his territory while also fulfilling his previous life's dream of becoming the best pastry chef. Chapter 13. Elder Dwarf. The following morning, Tenko clung to my arm as she slept. It seemed to me that ever since yesterday's promise, she was clinging to me even more. She wore pajamas like those of a child's. The pajamas were something I made using creation. It suited her well and made her look very cute. Oto-san. I love you. Tenko said such an adorable thing in her sleep. I poke her cheek with my finger and it was squishy and springy. It also felt good. Next, I lightly pinched her fox ears. The sensation of her ears, both the inner part and the outer part with soft fur, was irresistible. Such was my daily routine. After I've had enough Tenko, I got up. When I did, so did Tenko. Still half asleep, she rubbed her eyes and floated a smile on her face. Good morning, Oto-san. She said it in such a casual manner that it was so irresistibly cute. I came closer to her and proceeded to rub her fluffy tail. Good morning, Tenko. As I replied, I secretly wished for the new monster to be as fantastic as Tenko. So, what is Marcho doing here? Whenever a new monster was going to be created, it was possible that some kind of blunder would occur. Such blunders included creating a gigantic monster or one which was dangerous. And so, we went out to an open area to be ready for such blunders, but Marcho and Succubus were also there. Additionally, an unusually splendid table along with some chairs was set up. They were fully enjoying an elegant tea time. I heard you were about to make a new monster. While what you heard may be true, surely, that's not all the reason you've come here. But it is. Witnessing the birth of an S-rank monster is one of the best form of entertainment there is. The great demon lord Marchosias-sama, who is by now unimpressed with most things, will surely not miss such an event. That is called being an onlooker. As a demon lord, the correct response would be to not show any information about one's own monsters in order to conceal one's true might. However, I didn't mind showing this secret to Marcho, who had given me assistance in the past. Do as you like then. Yeah, we will. In a month, the evening party will be held, so I support your making of another executive. I sensed my expression go stiff. What evening party? Now that I thought about it, I remembered that Marcho had something to say on the day we first went to the Crimson Cavern. It's the gathering of the demon lords. All the demon lords will assemble on that occasion. The stars this time would be you, the 10 new demon lords who will be making a debut. It was as I thought. A chance for all demon lords to gather under one roof. Such a delicious story. I absolutely cannot waste it. This was a great chance to obtain original medals. And the means of obtaining original medals were things that were always on my mind. For example, wouldn't the other demon lords want something from the things I made using creation in exchange for their original medal? Also, I don't know about the demon lords whose medals were of a rank, but for demon lords whose medals were just B rank, the strongest monster they could make were B rank monsters. So if it was those guys, wouldn't they be open to an exchange for my imitation medal at B rank? I had many ideas like these. After all my original medals were about to be used up now that I'm planning to do a synthesis to get a dwarf. I want to get at least another original medal in order to have my 3 monsters of the Covenant. I wish you'd inform me of things like these a bit earlier. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Hey, I did once try to tell you though. It was when you first went to the Crimson Cavern. It was harsh of me to say that. I should also listen properly next time. I got it. Let's move on. You sure are understanding. It's because you're my friend. Macho listened to my words and then floated a smile on her face. It was as though she has seen through my heart. Let's end the chit-chat. I'll start making the new monster now. I strongly declared so and proceeded to focus. Both Marcho and Tenko looked my way, and while both were excited, Tenko's eyes showed a bit of worry. This worry of me being stolen away by the new monster probably wouldn't disappear anytime soon. As I smiled wryly at such, I began the process. The first step in making a monster was discharge. Upon uttering that incantation, the creation medal was made and enclosed within my hand. It was the symbol of my power. Next, I got the person imitation medal by using some of my DP. The rank of the original medal of person was an A rank, but upon being manifested as an imitation medal, it dropped down to B rank. And then, I took out the Earth medal I received from Marcho. All in all, the medals in my hand were person, earth, and creation. I held on to them tightly. And now, to begin. Synthesis. Light rose up from my tightly clenched fist. As I opened my hand, the light leaked out, and within that light, a silhouette was formed. The earth original medal and the person imitation medal merged and settled down. And then, the power of creation took effect, and I chose alchemy. To know the truth of this world and goes towards it. To walk alongside with earth and flame. Note: I personally think flame should be person instead, to have profound knowledge and intelligence that earth and person alone couldn't give. I guided it towards that path. Unlike the time I made Tenko, in which I only used A rank medals, it was possible for this child I was going to make to not only be an S rank monster but also an A rank monster. But of course, I chose for it to be an S rank. Furthermore, I chose it to not have a static level. Instead, I willed it to have the ability to grow. Its maximum level would increase, and, when compared to the same monster on the same level which had a static level, the one that had the ability to grow would prove to be stronger. Alright, it's complete. All that's left was to wait for the monster to be born. The silhouette within the light grew denser. And then, the beating of the monster's heart could be heard. Alright, it's finished. The light stopped shining and the new monster was then born. Master. Nice to meet you. The monster talked in a robotic voice. Her appearance was that of a beautiful girl's. She had silver hair, a height that didn't even reach 140 centimeters, which suited her rather flat figure. However, I sensed from her icy blue eyes unmistakable intelligence. Nice to meet you. I'm the demon lord that created you. I am the creation demon lord Procell. Sorry, but would you please immediately tell me your race? Yes, master. I am an elder dwarf. The pinnacle of the dwarves. One which possesses stellar wisdom, has mastery over all things, and creator of supreme arms. The elder dwarf indifferently connected her words together. Her voice and way of talking didn't discourage her cool appearance. I then looked at her status. Race. Elder Dwarf S. Rank name. Unnamed level. 1 physical strength. A plus endurance. S agility. C magic power. A luck. B special. S skills. Stellar wisdom bearer of all things silver alchemist unparalleled Herculean strength eye of truth when compared to Tenko's, her status were indeed inferior but they were still very much high-end. Most especially were her skills. She had all the necessary things to be a blacksmith. One might say her stellar wisdom and bearer of all things were particularly outside of the norm. But above all, she had the highest compatibility to my creation. It was exactly like the monster I wished for. No, she was better. I'll be expecting much from you, Elder Dwarf. Please do, Master. As long as Master entrusts to me the materials, I will keep on producing arms of the highest quality. We firmly shook hands. From now on and as long as I have her, the weapons I had made using creation would only get stronger at a rapid rate. Another cute little girl. I guess, rather than being the creation demon lord, Procell's more of like the lowly demon lord, right? I thought I heard some rather terribly rude words coming from my back, but that must have been just my imagination. The author, Tsukiyo Rui Sensei, wants to take this opportunity to promote the release of the first volume of her other work, Upstart Pastry Chef The Territory Management of a Genius Patissier. It will launch on the 30th of October, although Futabasha states it will be available on the 29th. The synopsis say that it's about a genius pastry chef reincarnated into a noble albeit of low nobility. And after some twists, becomes the ruling lord of an area. And so, he want to build up his territory while also fulfilling his previous life's dream of becoming the best pastry chef. Also, while we're at it, check out the other novels written by the author. Some are already in light novel format. Volume 1 Chapter 14 The New Monster was born. It was an elder dwarf, an S rank in the pinnacle of the dwarven race. Of course she was a candidate to be one of my only 3 monsters of the covenant. As for her appearance, she was a short, a little bit flat-chested, silver-haired beautiful girl. Master, I am issuing a request for a workshop and some metals. I hope the workshop has a quiet environment for I wish to immerse myself in research. She was just born and yet she was making some requests. But rather than saying she had a forceful personality, it was more of like she's one of those types that were so engrossed on something, they couldn't pay any attention to their surroundings. Let's talk for a moment. Why would you want a workshop? To produce swords of the highest quality in accordance to my role as an expert blacksmith. Indifferently, Elder Dwarf informed me so. Her clear icy blue eyes and silver hair only enforced her cold image. Even though she was a dwarf, she was just short and her appearance almost didn't differ from that of a human's. Put crudely, her almost pitiful flat-chestedness was her distinctive feature. Moo, stop. Forget about making swords, make Tenko's shotgun stronger. Tenko butted in. In her hand was her Remilton M870P. She expected that her toy would be made even stronger. I don't have the time to be concerned about that stick. No, wait. That. Interesting. The color of Elder Dwarf's eye changed. In the blink of an eye, she swiped off from Tenko the shotgun. Elder Dwarf had the skill called Eye of Truth. It was the eye of the divine that saw through every single thing's abilities and construction. And thus, she had seen through the Remilton M870P's hidden power. And even though Tenko was caught off guard, she still managed to take the gun off of Tenko's hand. With a stunt like that, one could easily guess just how high her specs were. Ah! Give back Tenko's shotgun. Ignoring Tenko who had become teary-eyed, Elder Dwarf moved the pump and loaded the gun. She then pointed the shotgun towards the sky and afterwards fired it. This weapon, it's interesting. It will be worthwhile to research it. And then, an exceedingly great smile floated on her face. I was convinced, yes, this fellow was up to no good. Hey, you, give it back. Don't do anything terrible to Tenko's shotgun. Terrible. You're the one doing something terrible to it. Your maintenance of it is sloppy and it's damaging the weapon. Left as it is, it will be broken. Ah. Tenko was at a loss for words. I did teach Tenko at one point how to maintain the gun but it looked like her maintenance was sloppy. From time to time, I took a look at it but recently, I had entrusted all of it onto Tenko. I will heal this child. Just watch. The elder dwarf somehow took the gun apart piece by piece with her bare hands. Her dwarven skill, silver alchemist, allowed her to process and manipulate every kind of metal. She cleaned the parts one by one. And then, she thrusted her hand into Tenko's pocket and procured maintenance oil. She then thoroughly applied the oil. Afterwards, she instantly reassembled all the parts back together. She managed to do all those chain of events in about 10 seconds. As expected of the highest in the lineage of dwarves. It's all healed up now. I've also understood its construction. I have no need of it now. I'm giving it back. The elder dwarf returned the shotgun to Tenko. She wore her same as ever expressionless face, but somehow she looked flushed and ecstatic. Thanks. Tenko, having received the cleaned shotgun, meekly expressed words of gratitude. Your gratitude is not necessary. I merely did some maintenance while I studied its construction. By the way, who are you? After all this time of interaction, Elder Dwarf asked Tenko the question. Tenko, I'm Tenko. I'm Oto-san's daughter and I'm the next greatest after Oto-san. With an ahem, Tenko puffed out her chest. Understood. I sense a dreadful power from you. I will accept that you are the head monster. Tenko is Elder Dwarf's Oni-chan. As the little sister, you have to listen to whatever your older sister tells you. I understand. I will obey the head monster's, orders. However, if you ever get in the way of my research, I will eliminate you. You have great resolve. The carried away Tenko, who assumed the role of Oni-chan, an elder dwarf who, although looked to be obedient, said such a frightening thing. I got a bit of a headache. Nay, Procel. Your monsters, they're terrible, aren't they? Please don't say that. Marcho laughed as we talked. Without knowing the feelings of us demon lords, my monsters got excited. L-chan really shows some promise. L-chan. Elder dwarf's too long. Until Oto-san decides to give you a name, I'll call you L-chan. I won't teach you, but I'll let you watch me using the shotgun. It's amazing. The ability of my skill, bearer of all things, gives me mastery of every single tool and weapon. Quite a useful ability. Her ability to use all of the things I made using creation makes it great. She should be able to use bikes, cars, and many other things. So, make a strong weapon for Tenko. Your weapon is almost at its ideal form. To make it any stronger, I will need a powerful metal. Mithril, if possible. She had declared that if she only had the materials, she would be able to immediately make the shotgun she just saw stronger. Her personality aside, her abilities were first-rate. Oto-san, use your magic to make some mithril. Tenko came over my way, her eyes sparkling. However, I couldn't meet her expectations. Sorry. I can't make things which has magic power flowing in it. Mithril had magic power flowing in it. And in the first place, I had never seen one. That's too bad. Ah. You can use my mining area then. The ores one may obtain from a mine inside a dungeon is proportional to the power of the dungeon's demon lord. And my dungeon has the strongest demon lord there is. Mithril, adamantite, and if you're lucky, orichalcum can be mined. It's supposed to attract adventurers, but it proved to be unpopular, so don't hold back on mining. A helping hand was extended to me. You even have a room like that in your dungeon. I have most things, you know. You too, now that you have a monster like the Elder Dwarf, should prepare a mine for when you build your own dungeon. I shall seriously consider it. Elder Dwarf's weapon production was essential. When I looked at the Demon Lord book to confirm it, I saw that it costs 5,000 DP. Almost the price of 5B rank monsters. Note. More like 4 if each one costs 1200 DP, although I guess it was worth the investment. Well then, shall we go digging? I also want to see Elder Dwarf's abilities. I turned around and uttered, so. I command you. Respond, Earth. Humanoid vessel creation. Fully motivated, the Elder Dwarf placed her hand on the ground and activated her magic. The earth swelled up, and a figure of a man. No, what was created was a golem which was about 2 meters high and had a tough build. Furthermore, after she put together her hands, a red gemstone appeared on the palm of her hands. The red gemstone was inserted within the golem. The golem's eyes shone and the golem itself started to move. The golem carefully held a pickaxe made of stone. Was it saying it wanted to dig some ore? Elder Dwarf. What is that? My magic. Humanoid vessel creation creates golems. Depending on the material used, the golem can be created with strength ranging from F rank to B rank. This child here is only made of stone, so its strength is only around F rank. I gulped down. Can you make those as long as you have the magic power? For how long will it move? Yes, I can, but the magic stone at its core can only be made once a day. It draws mana from its surroundings so it can move indefinitely. Listening to her words, I raised my assessment of Elder Dwarf by roughly 2 ranks. It could possibly increase my military might more than the skeletons. How much intelligence can the golems have? As much as I give them. They move according to my programming. The weapon Tenko wields is called a gun. Can they use it? The size will make it impossible. Guns were originally made to be used by humans so, as expected, the golem's large finger wouldn't be able to pull the trigger. I see. Too bad. I said so, only Elder Dwarf wasn't finished speaking yet. I just lack the materials to be able to remodel the guns in accordance to the size of the golems. It's embarrassing but I trembled a little. If the assault rifles were in such a size and were combined with the golem's power, it would be like heavy machine guns. However, those would weigh close to 40 kilograms so I would need to first raise my level in MP to be able to create those guns. Just a little bit more, I guess. Anyway, let's go to the mine first. We have to gather some materials. Elder Dwarf, sorry but I want to ask of you 2 things. First, I want you give the highest priority regarding the gathered materials on strengthening Tenko's shotgun. Second, I want you to make a golem each and every single day. Understood, Master. Elder Dwarf nodded. She didn't display any emotion but I knew that she was pleased. I guess weapon enhancement's a hobby of hers. Master, I will need some pen and paper for various calculations and for creating blueprints. Making some pen and paper using creation was easy but I had something in my memory which was a lot better. You have bearer of all things, so you should be able to use this, right? What I made using my creation was a notebook PC. Elder Dwarf's bearer of all things was a skill that allowed her to use every single tool. I expected that to remain true for electronics. By the way, I also summoned a gasoline-based power generator. With terrifying might, she leapt towards the notebook PC and started up a drawing software and a calculation software. And so, she began designing for the improvements of the gun. As I thought, she was able to use it perfectly. This tool is great, immensely so. If I have this, the quality of my designs as well as its performance will jump up. Master, you're the best master. Elder Dwarf was already absorbed in the notebook PC. The thought of going to the mine was wiped off from her mind. Very well. Elder Dwarf, I'll be borrowing the golems. We'll go mining so you just focus on the designs. Thank you, Master. I have so much work before me, there's no way I can leave any of it behind. Thus, Elder Dwarf was left behind on our house. We mined day and night and thanks to the skeletons and golems which didn't know the concept of fatigue, we had gathered a substantial amount of mithril. With this, Tenko's Remilton M870P would soon be reborn.